Okay, perfect. All right. So, Arvind, are you all set?
Yeah, I have a slight background noise issue. We'll see how we deal with that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That should be fine. Okay. Well, thank you all for joining today's webinar. The key topics that we will be covering today. First, Arvind, who all of us know manages our product direction. So he will be introducing the new capabilities that we've just launched with the 14.1 update. So we'll start with that particular session and let Arvind go first and introduce to us the key capabilities. During the session, if you have any questions, please do raise your hand and ask that question. And Arvind will make sure that once he's finished with his slides, we are able to cover those topics and those questions. Then right after Arvind, then we have another guest speaker today, and Max will go through the cloud presentation and provide us the cloud messaging update. And we'll go through that session in the same structure where Max will present. And then if you have questions, please do interrupt and ask those questions, and we'll cover those. So with that, Arvind, all yours.
All right. Thanks, Rakesh, and sorry for a little bit of background noise.
Not a problem.
So I'm hoping most of you had a chance to actually attend the webinar that we did. It was a week before, well, yeah, it was last Thursday. We'll have another webinar on Vim this Thursday. Please be sure to attend that. I will have a lot of good information on the new Vim release. The webinar was basically on the 14.1 release that we launched. What I'm going to do, at least in this session, is we're going to skip through the slides, just stop at the most important ones, which is mostly an open Q&A. If you had questions from the webinar, please feel free to start off with them. If not, we'll seed the discussion with a few slides, and then we'll go into questions based on those slides. Okay, so 14.1 is generally available. It has been since 7th of August. It's already been installed at a few customers like Absa, so we know it works. We know the quality is good. Some very basic stuff that I will cover on 14.1. The primary theme for 14.1 has been customer focused. Basically, the idea was to try and close as many customizations that we do on the field as possible. So we've pulled in a lot of those customizations, made them out of the box or as CFS, which you will see as we go through the rest of the slides. I'll skip through the quality slides. So I think one of the key things that I wanted to bring out here is this is an eGain based release. Unfortunately, this release is not available for our CCE customers. It's not a decision that we wanted to make. It was more a decision we had to make, basically because of some infrastructure changes that had to be done and the time it would take to make those infrastructure changes available for S+. We have a release coming up in about 2 months from now that will close the gap, and S+ users will have access to that release as soon as we release it. So end of October-ish, we'll have a release that S+ users can use. Till then, they stay on 14.03. 14.1 is not available to S+ users. So I think it's a key differentiator. So when we do pitch in S+ situations, just make sure that the features set in 14.1, just be aware that's not available immediately, and it's going to be another couple of months before it'll be available. These I will skip through. Localizations, quickly, we've had localizations for a very long time. We're still localized into all the various languages. What we've done is we've basically updated the localizations to be up to date. We normally run about one service pack or a couple of hot fixes behind the major release, and that's mainly because you have to do the release then sent out the strings for localization, wait for them to come in and incorporate it back. So we always tend to run a little behind, so we're now all caught up. I don't know if we have an EMEA audience, but this is mostly for an EMEA audience. We do have online help available in French and German. We didn't have that before. This was, again, by popular demand. Some enhancements reports which I'll skip over. So I'll cover the major enhancements to the apps. So social has been one of the products that we've had a lot of trouble with in the past, still have a lot of trouble with. So it's not one of the products that we want to lead with, but it is a popular product, so we get asked questions about it a lot, and customers do tend to deploy it. One of the issues we used to face was the lag in fetching data from our data sources, namely Twitter and Facebook. We've closed that, so at least for Twitter. So Twitter now, we have a real-time stream coming in from Twitter, so we get the data as and when it gets posted to Twitter. Near real-time is what we say, because we're still dependent on Twitter to send us the data. And it also reduces the chances of us hitting any API rate limit issues. Some fun avatars on Virtual Assistant. Video chat. This is a topic I'm going to pause on for a couple of minutes, and I'm sure that there will be questions on this topic as well. We have had video chat since 11. It was a Flash-based plugin that you required. It was not mobile capable. We've introduced a new beta in 14.02. Just remember, this is beta only. We cannot go production with this because it's not. It's been certified by QA. So basically, support will not support this product till the certification is done. The certification will happen in the next release. However, it's available as beta for people who want to try it out. It's available as beta for our demos. We already have a few demos that are enabled, people who are trying this thing out. It's a new service provider called TalkBox. It's a WebRTC-based capability instead of a Flash-based capability. It's cloud, meaning even if the customer is on-premise, the video chat's always going to be on cloud. That's because our service provider is a cloud-based service provider. So your video streams are always going to go through a cloud-based service provider. That's really a key message that you want to take away from this one. So I do have a comparison table here, which these slide sets are already available. Manju had sent out a mail yesterday with a recording and slide sets. So feel free to look at this, but basically covers all the things that I've said. Oh, the only additional thing is TalkBox is mobile capable. They have a mobile API, which can be used to integrate TalkBox into iOS or Android. We can provide people with a starting code, but just remember that somebody is going to have to write a native app before they can use it on a mobile device. That is normal for all mobile chat providers. Some screenshots of the chat here. So I'm going to pause here, see if there are any questions on the video chat, because I'm expecting something.
Yeah, so Arvind, hi, this is Rakesh. There are a couple of questions that have come up in general.
Okay.
The one question is that Tony Finney asked, in our world, you talked about localization and support for different languages. The question is, in Egan's world, how do we define localization for languages?
Right. So there are a few things. There are a few things to consider. Localization purely means UI localization. So the ability to see the UI in a different language. That's localization. We do internationalization, which again is basically the ability to get all messages coming out of the system in various different languages. They normally go hand in hand. The third thing that we have is language support. Language support varies from product to product and the capability that you're looking for. So you have language support for core content, meaning can we handle the content with no additional capabilities. Then you have language support for the areas of the application that require language support. For example, spell checking, NLP-based search, etc. So those have different values based on the language. So for example, spell check is available in a certain set of languages, but it's not available in, say, Chinese. However, we support the content in Chinese. NLP, again, is not available in Chinese. So those variations are there. If you go to eBrain, there is a document called the Language Support Guide. It's a restricted document for internal use. However, it has a matrix which will detail out our capabilities in these various areas and what languages we support each of these capabilities in.
Okay, that makes sense. Perfect. Now the next question is about Vim. Does the Vim reporting replace analytics and traditional reports in the eGain Classic product? You know, is it including standard cloud cost or peer setup estimates? So if you could touch, I mean, there has been a lot of traction and interest in this Vim reporting.
Yeah.
So how does the world change now, 14.1 onwards?
So I'm going to cover that in brief, and mainly I'll keep it very brief because this is one of the subjects that will be covered in tomorrow's webinar. So be sure to attend that webinar to get all of the information. So eventually we will retire eGain Analytics and eGain Reports, and there will only be eGain Analytics via Vim. That will be the only product. Pricing is yet to be decided, but the current thought process is that Vim will probably be available for digital channels as included cost in the licensing with some minimums attached to it. So Vim will probably be available in that respect, and the standard cost will be included in it. However, please do attend tomorrow's webinar. We'll have more details on what the timeline for that looks like. Starting 14.1 or 15 for that matter, this is not going to be the case, primarily because there are gaps between what is currently available in the reports and analytics and what Vim can do. Once those gaps are closed, then we will retire those applications.
Okay, that makes sense. Now the next question, Arvind, is around social. As we see, is there a delay as far as social is concerned from a Facebook perspective, or has that been eliminated? So for social, is there still delay with Facebook APIs, or that has been eliminated?
Yeah, so yes, so the Facebook, we haven't changed the method that we fetch data from Facebook, so we still do a poll instead of a stream, which means there is a polling frequency, and that's the delay. Facebook also has a very strong rate limit we run into all the time, so we normally tell people that about 5 to 10 minutes is what you would need to set it at, so that you don't run into the rate limit issues. So yes, there is a potentially a 10-minute delay before we can fetch data from Facebook. We're working on it. I don't have details on when we can eliminate that yet.
Okay, and how about Twitter? You mentioned that we've come to pretty much near real time. So is that situation different for Twitter?
It is different from. It was the same for Twitter. We changed it. Twitter has a streaming API that allows us to just subscribe to a stream and wait for Twitter to send us the updates. It's a great API. I mean, it's a great way to get updates. It's push-based routing, which means that we don't have to deal with. Sorry, guys. It's push-based routing, so it means we don't have to wait for, or we don't have to go and poll every 5 minutes or 10 minutes. As the updates happen, Twitter will push to us. I say it's near real time because we still have to wait for Twitter to push the updates to us. So it's still near real time, not real time.
Okay, and okay, perfect. So the next question is around video chat. So do we support video chat in Chat SDK? If not, then when do we support that? So I know we have our own Chat SDK. TalkBox has their own Chat SDK. So can you clarify that whole situation?
Yeah.
If somebody had to take that, and how would they embed that experience into a native app?
Sure. So short answer is no. There is a TalkBox SDK that you will have to use in conjunction with our SDK. Eventually, we will enable all of that together in one SDK. However, that's going to be a little down the line, mainly because we have other things in priority that we need to work on, and this is a capability you can still do with the TalkBox API, and we will enable it by providing sample source code to get you started. So we don't think there is an urgency in doing this at this point. So that's the reason why it's a slightly lower priority, but we'll close the gap at some point. So today you'll have to deal with 2 different APIs.
Okay, perfect. And even the beta customers who, if they decide to do a trial of it, they would have access to our SDK as well as TalkBox SDK and documentation, and they can go through that process of building that into their native app.
Absolutely, and we will provide them a sample source code if needed so that they have a starting point.
Okay, perfect. So Arvind, those are the questions so far. I will encourage everybody on the team to ask any questions. So let's keep it very, very interactive. So Arvind, till we get new questions, please move forward with your plan. Yeah.
So let's quickly go over some of the other things that are in the slides. And again, I'll stop only at parts which are fairly important. So I'm going to skip through most of these slides. I'll just give you the background of this thing. Basically, this is a very specific enhancement that was requested. It's the ability to, if you're already a logged-in user into the website for some reason, we don't want to show them the chat login screen because we probably already have all that information. We have a way of doing it, and we've been doing it in a particular way. However, it was not secure. And this is a more secure way of doing it. Actually, the SAML-based one is the most secure way of doing it. You can pass in as many attributes as you want, and we'll pull all of the attributes from the SAML assertion that we get. And once we get those attributes, we'll use those attributes to automatically log you into the chat. So basically, end user experience, you won't see a chat login screen. In the background, we securely get that information. That's all it is. Chat deflection, I think this is really important. We've done this in the field for a very long time. We claim that knowledge is important across the board when it comes to servicing customers. Deflection is an important part of that. It's basically moving customers into a self-service situation or moving customers away from assisted service into self-service. If there's an automatic saving, it's an ROI number that we can very easily claim. So anybody who clicks on a knowledge article and says that they don't want to chat is an automatic saving. So it's an important feature. What we have now is we have it out of the box so that PS does not have to do anything to enable this capability. I'll quickly skip over the slides. I'm just going to skip over the smarter chat offers. It's really just that. If you're already in a chat session, don't offer another chat. Go into multi. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Arvind. A couple of questions. So let me ask. Going back to social and specifically reputation management, Roy has a client who wants to be able to monitor the entire social world for negative comments rather than just their own social pages. So are we able to do that?
Yeah.
That's the question.
So that's a great question, and I think that's where positioning the product comes into play a little bit. So we are not a social monitoring tool. So we are not direct competition to somebody like Radian6 for example. We don't tell people that we can monitor the entire world. We don't tell people that we can run analytics on all the things that we monitor. Where we excel is the ability to operationalize your social needs. So once that monitoring part is over, once you detect that something needs to be responded to, the ability to send that in through a workflow, ability to route it through agents, ability to monitor agents' performance, ability to balance agents' load, run analytics across all of those things. That's where we excel, and that's really the part that we should sell social into. We should not sell social into a monitoring situation where chances are, even if the customer does pick us up, they will not be happy with the tool, because that's really not our strength.
Okay. Then the next question, Arvind, is around deflection. So it's a good one that for some, let's say, there are customers who are authenticated, right? So for priority customers, can we disable deflection on some entry points?
Yes, absolutely. So deflection is configured. Is it configured at a template or an entry point level? Regardless, it's configured either at a template or an entry point level. So you can have specific entry points coming in that do not have deflection enabled. So that way you can disable deflection for specific customers. And you can even drive that with an offer up front, so you can calculate whether or not to send the customer into a deflected endpoint or not. So those are all the configuration bits that we can do.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so those are the questions so far, Arvind. So please move forward, and if more questions come up, I'll just interrupt and ask the question.
Sounds good. So multi-site co-browsing, again, quickly, this is the ability to co-browse more than your own domain. So one of the things we had to do when you co-browse is you have to put this one tag on your domain. However, what if you do not own the domain, you still want to co-browse it? You don't have the ability to put one tag on that domain because you don't own it. So now we have the ability to co-browse domains that you don't necessarily own, which means you don't need to tag those domains to co-browse. There are a few gotchas on this one, so we need to be careful with this thing. What we normally say is the customer leads and the agent follows. So the customer browser is a host, the agent browser follows the customer browser. So if there is any any bad experience or any break in experience, only the agent suffers, the customer doesn't suffer. That's for normal co-browse. For multi-site co-browse, the agent browser leads, which means the bad experience will be on the customer side if there is one. So we need to be really careful on which pages we enable this capability for. Second thing is the co-browse is enabled by a browser extension. The browser extension is available only for Firefox. However, this means that the agent requires Firefox. However, the eGain consoles are enabled only on Internet Explorer, which means now the agent has to shuffle between IE and Firefox to get this capability enabled. So those are some of the things that you will run into, so you might want to cover that in a nice way with the customer ahead of time before we even get into a multi-site discussion with them. It's a fairly powerful feature. The reason we implemented it, as the previous screenshot kind of shows, HCSC wanted to be able to browse the healthcare.gov site and be able to pick a coverage plan out of the healthcare.gov site and enable customers to fill in the form and sign up for it, etc. So fairly powerful feature, but it does have a few gotchas.
Okay, so Arvind, next set of questions for you. Questions from Danny. If the customer still wants to chat, this is around deflection, that if a customer still wants to chat even after the deflection, can a customer carry on with the chat?
Yes, absolutely. So just because we show them a deflection page doesn't mean they lose their spot in line. They're still in line, and they can just say, "Oh no, I don't care about all the articles that you're showing me. I'm just going to go ahead and chat." There's a button that says "Continue to chat."
Okay, perfect. The next question is around the rules engine from a co-browse perspective. So the rules engine allows blocking of domains that can be co-browsed. Can it be restricted to domains now too?
The rules engine now allows blocking of domains. Yeah, so I don't think I completely understood the question, but
okay. Ashley, can you unmute Rich? This was a question from Rich.
Yes, 1 second.
Yeah. Okay, while we are doing that, I'll get back to this question. Next question is from Mark Herman. Have we enhanced the way we initiate the external co-browse session?
We have a few things that we've tried to make a little smooth. It's not, as I said, it's not the most smoothest experience. We're aware of it. Primarily a technology gap. Our consoles are stuck on IE. We can't move them up very easily. Co-browse is stuck on HTML5 based browsers, which we can't move down. So we have that gap that we really cannot address in a nicer fashion. Anything else that we try to do will probably lead to more errors on the customer side, and we don't want to do that.
Okay. The next question is from Craig, and after this, I'll go back to Rich. Craig's question is, when will we start supporting the co-browse extension on IE? When will that be available?
There are lots and lots and lots of different problems with IE and extensions. Probably never. If you guys have not, I mean, Microsoft just released Windows 10. Along with Windows 10, they also released a new browser called the Edge. And that is really their go-forward browser, even though they are continuing to support IE11, at least for the time being. They haven't said when they will discontinue support for IE11. But Edge does not support plugins. Edge supports very few extensions. So we don't know what the state with IE is going to be. At this point, there is no plan in place to create that browser extension on IE.
Okay. So let's go back to Rich. Rich, can you clarify your questions about blocking, restricting domains now on the co-browse side? Can you clarify for Arvind?
Thanks, Rakesh. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yeah.
So when you give the ability to browse across multiple domains using that kind of co-browse, you're essentially opening every domain up to people to co-browse almost anything. So you can restrict domains. So you can say, for example, don't allow them to browse egame.com, but that still leaves every other domain out there available. Is it possible to restrict them down to a domain or a number of domains so that you're kind of restricting what they can co-browse across a greater kind of acceptance?
Yes. The short answer is yes. It's a fairly new, actually. Let me think through that once more.
Okay.
We recently introduced a security fix for Capita, which does exactly that. Basically, it allows you to whitelist domains instead of blacklist domains. However, I'm not sure if it's already in 14.1 or if it's going to come in a hotfix. But yes, we will have that capability. It just I'm not really sure if it's in 14.1 or if it's going to be in a hotfix after 14.1.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Now, the next question is from Kurt. Share that multi-domain does not show what was filled on a form at a point the co-browser started, similar to what would happen on a in-domain co-browse. Kurt, maybe we can unmute you, and you can, maybe, Arvind, if you understood the question, go ahead.
Yeah, I understand what he says. I think this is, again, a problem of the agent having to lead versus the customer leading. When we had the scenario where the customer was leading, the agent could join the session at any point of time and continue from that point forward. When the agent leads, they have to recreate the session. So if customers halfway through filling a form, they can't just suddenly say, "Hey, agent, come join me and co-browse this form, the rest of this form with me." They'll have to restart from the top and refill that form because the agent has to initiate the co-browse session. So that's basically what Kurt's saying. Yeah, and that is true for multi-site co-browsing. However, it is not true for the tagged or the standard co-browse. You can join halfway through a form fill process.
Okay. The next question is from Mark Herman. Is the internal site co-browsing only available on IE for an agent? Then have to switch to Firefox for external sites?
No, you could do everything on Firefox if you want to. There is some restrictions to the amount of rules that you can configure for co-browsing. With an external site, it's a little less, I think. But yes, you can do the whole thing in Firefox if you want to. However, we still recommend IE if you're just for agents that are just going to do internal. So there are agents that are only going to do internal, or situations that will only require internal. We recommend that you stay on the standard co-browse, mainly because it's a better experience, and we have all the analytics and the auditing and everything captured properly.
Okay. The next question is from Steve, and this is about multi-domain co-browse. It was stated that it's agent-led. Does that mean that the customer cannot take control of the session and take the agent to a specific page as part of their journey?
No, that's what it basically means is that the agent browser is the primary. So customer can still do things that will take both browsers into wherever it needs to go. But the agent browser is the primary, which means the website first loads on the agent browser, and then the data is transferred from the agent browser to the customer browser. So all the data goes through the agent browser. That's what it really means, and that obviously introduces other risks in play. Like one of the things would be, so if, say, for example, a field is masked in a standard tagged co-browsing, because the customer browser leads, the masked field information is never transferred to the agent browser. So even if the agent wants to, even if the agent is malicious, they cannot get to that information. However, in a multi-domain co-browse, all that information has to go through the agent browser because the agent browser is the primary. So even if you do mask the fields, there is potential for the agent to be able to get to information. So there are some limitations in that respect.
Okay. Now, next question is from KK. Do we have any report that we can use to calculate the ROI of deflection in chat? It is very similar to kind of what we have for the self-service escalation report.
We do have the data available. The report will eventually be available via Vim. That'll probably be a good question for tomorrow's session to see if that report can be generated today. But we have that data available. So we should be able to generate the report. It's just a question of is it available out of the box or not. So I'm not really I'm not sure about that.
Okay, yeah, understood. That's fine. Okay, so we are pretty much, at top of the hour. So thank you, Arvind. I know you had a lot of stuff to cover, but I think the key important part was let the team ask the questions, and we got a lot of their questions covered. So I don't have any unanswered questions at this time. So what we can do is maybe now cloud was another big topic. Let's move on to cloud now. So Ashley, if you could make Max the presenter. So our next guest speaker today is Max, and Max will cover the cloud topics. And let's ask all the questions you have in mind to Max, and we'll keep the format very structured because answering your questions is more high priority than going through a set of slides. So ask as many questions as you would like, okay? So Max, are you ready?
I am. Thanks, Rakesh. Can everyone see my screen? Or can the people who can talk see my screen?
Yes.
All right, perfect. All right, so just go through a few things. As Rakesh said, I'm not going to necessarily go through word for word all this stuff, but primarily I want to do two things. I want to highlight a few things in our cloud deck and show you guys where you should be looking for information, because we do actually have a fair amount of collateral. It's just making sure we're going to the right spot to look for it. So the first place and the most important place for cloud collateral is eBrain. So just to show people where everything is, under products and technical collateral, there's a page with some presentations and technical papers. It has some stuff for the software suite as well, but I'm going to focus on the cloud piece, and I'm going to go through the presentation very briefly. This is the document that we should be sending to all our new cloud prospects, because this document actually answers probably 80% of the cloud security questions we get, and some of the technical questions that we get on our cloud architecture. This is really the first document that should be sent to a customer. So we'll open this up and spin through it very quickly. So this is these are all the different sections this document talks about. compliance, security, infrastructure redundancy, how we make sure we can meet our SLAs, DR, and our data policy. So a couple highlights on this one. On the compliance, we do have all the standard compliance pieces from our data centers in the US and the UK. They're very well established data centers. And we do have the options for HIPAA and PCI compliance as well for customers, for Platinum customers who want to pay for that. For our EU customers, we also do have Safe Harbor. In general, that's something, if they care about it, they're going to want to know about it. If they're not sending any data across, then they probably don't care. All right, on the security topic, so I'm gonna just highlight a couple things because this is a relatively long section. We talk about 4 different things. We talk about application, network, physical, and operational. The 2 that we get the most questions about, if it's a customer meeting, it's typically about network security. And if it's an RFP, it's typically all 4, but the most common ones are network and operational. So on the application side, as I mentioned on eBrain here, there's a whole bunch of product software stuff. So this is going to go into a lot more depth than this cloud presentation, but we at least highlight a couple things and reference those documents if people want to look at it. And again, this is for customers, right? So we can certainly send these 2 things to any prospect. It doesn't require an NDA, and they should be aware of these things. On the network side, so the main key point here is that eGain is a private cloud offering that offers industry-leading security features, or at least industry-standard security features. We go very in-depth. Most of you know Mike Donham. He's come on probably a bunch of your calls. He's ex-DoD, and he has brought in a lot of the essentially government-level standards to implement them within eGain. We have a very high level of security. We've never had a security meeting or concern that we weren't able to meet or alleviate. In general, if he's on the call and there's security guys asking questions, they don't go away feeling concerned or having any extra questions. So in general, we have a very high level of security. We do all the industry standard stuff on virus protection and DDoS and IDS, IPS, filtering traffic when it comes in to make sure there's nothing malicious. So we do all the right stuff, right? We base our standards on NIST and DoD standards, which is pretty much the industry standard for most of the compliance pieces, which is the reason we can offer HIPAA and PCI and all those things. And we also have a lot of processes around our centralized logging system and automation, which again are pieces that are required to meet any of those higher level compliances. So at a high level, the message is that we do all the right things. It's just a matter of educating the customer and their security team to make sure they understand that. So that's why this presentation is so important, because the first few questions we always get, for example, a lot of them are actually about encryption, right? Here's all the encryption we do, right? We do data at rest encryption. We do a site-to-site VPN for any integrations that need secure communications. We do all the segregated VLANs. And so that's why this is really good, because it's going to answer a lot of the questions that security folks are going to have. There's a high-level architecture diagram in here. A lot of times IT folks from customers like to see this to get an idea of how we're set up. And then physical security talks essentially about what we do at our data centers. Again, it's all the industry standard stuff. They're well-established data centers, and they have a lot of security controls in place that customers require. So the operational stuff is the other one. This comes up a lot in RFPs because a lot of times they want to know, do we have a policy for X, Y, and Z, right? So in general, the answer is yes. We have a policy for how we access the servers to do maintenance. We have policies that we do background checks on all our employees that access the systems, or all our employees in general. And it just talks about all the different compliance pieces we do. Again, these are very important when we want to get that HIPAA or PCI type of compliance. We have a change management process that I'm sure everybody has heard about. We have an incident management process, so when something does go wrong, we have a process on how to inform our customers, et cetera, et cetera. So these are all very important pieces to get past those RFP initial questions from the customer, and also to make their security team and their compliance teams comfortable with us as a cloud solution. All right, so infrastructure redundancy. So this primarily is talking about how we can make sure to meet all the customer SLAs that we're promising and that we're saying we're getting credits for. So we have a bunch of redundant infrastructure, firewalls. We have hardware infrastructure failover. So if one of our load balancers goes down, we automatically fail over to the next one, and the customers don't see an outage. Things like that. So essentially, all our components, right? We have redundant power, and then we also obviously monitor all our infrastructure so that if something is going wrong, we can quickly see it, we can quickly triage it, troubleshoot it, and hopefully fix it without ever the customer seeing any impact. DR is another one that gets talked about a bunch. So in general, we do have a redundant data center as a strategy for DR. So if our data center in San Jose or the UK in Slough goes out, we have a redundant data center in Chicago that we can use to fail over to. The two terms thrown about for DR is typically RTO and RPO. So how fast can we get you back up, and how much data will we potentially lose? So there's two potential ways that we do this. The first is for all our gold customers, which is our standard DR, and essentially it's the most common DR strategy, and that's backups. So we take hourly, daily, and weekly backups, and we put some of those off-site in a service called Iron Mountain, and so that if we did ever lose our entire data center, we'd be able to pull all those backups, get those to our DR site, and restore customer systems. The important piece to note here is that it is best effort. We don't commit to an SLA for our standard DR, primarily because we have no idea. In the event of a DR situation, we have no idea what type of failure that is. Realistically, California could have dropped off the map, and now we have a question on who's available to actually do it, right? So it's best effort because there's a lot of work involved in restoring backups. In general, we like to say 72 hours. We just don't commit to it. However, for customers who do want some commitments, we have our advanced DR. So this is a little more sophisticated. We actually replicate the VMs, and this allows us to commit to some specific numbers on how fast we can get customers back up. Typically, from a timing standpoint, we like to start by offering a 12-hour RTO. So we'll say you'll be back up in your redundant data center in the event of a huge catastrophic failure within 12 hours, and you won't lose any more than 4 hours of data. That is where we like to start, because that is a lot of times sufficient for customers for DR. We have gone down as low as 2 and 1, so that we commit to getting you back up in 2 hours with a data loss of 1 hour. However, we don't like to do that for every customer, because obviously there's a limit to how many customers we can offer that. So if we're talking about advanced DR, obviously I'm happy to get involved. This is for our platinum customers only. So at this time, I'm happy to discuss for those platinum deals. All right, and then here's the other item that has gotten a lot of traction recently, and this is on our data policy. So we are a software as a service solution. So in general, we've structured our data policy around that type of service. So we don't typically talk about how much data a customer is storing anymore. In general, we talk about how long we're going to retain their data. And so we split it up into a few different categories. You're going to have all your input data for the life of the contract. This is like your articles and your configuration and your users, stuff that when you put it in, you would expect it to never go away. And so that's what we do, right? We're not going to delete any knowledge articles that you configure in the system. The second class of content is essentially your interaction data. So this is like your emails or your chat transcripts, stuff like that. So that type of information we are going to keep for 13 months. After 13 months, we'll start cycling it out of the system, and it won't be available in the console anymore. And this is the alternative to capping them at a storage amount. In the past, we would say, hey, it can be X gigabytes, and then we'll charge you for additional storage. That was a little clunky. It also meant that we accumulated a lot of data that in many cases customers didn't actually need or care about. And so this allows us to keep the application running smoothly, quickly, because we don't have a lot of data that the customer doesn't care about. But we're giving them enough time that, in general, this is going to meet their needs. And then there's some other smaller, like more very detailed data, like offers in one tag, like visit data and stuff like that we keep for 5 weeks. And then in the event that a customer terminates, we have some guidelines on exactly what's going to happen for those customers when they terminate. They absolutely have an option to request their data, and we'll provide that if they request it. Otherwise, we'll make sure to get rid of it within 90 days. And we'll securely overwrite it. We do the standard DoD data destruction standard, so we overwrite it 5 times with a certified product that does magnetic destruction, and then we physically destroy it. We go through the standard process. So the reason this has come up a lot is because in some instances, this middle option here, this 13 months of data, does not necessarily meet the customer's needs. And in general, those customers fall into 2 categories. Actually, let me take a step back. So after going through this answers 80% of the questions that we get and fits the needs for most of our customers. The next question is, where do I go when this doesn't meet my needs or I have something different? And so before I go into the data policy stuff, let's talk about where to go get questions. So the next place you should always be looking for information is going to be Ask eGain. So this was eBrain, similar to eBrain. This is Ask eGain. So hopefully you're all familiar with this. This is the place where you can go to get product questions answered, and this is also the place you can go to get cloud questions answered. So cloud has its own section, so eGain Cloud down here. And within this is basically a forum where you can post and get your questions answered by me or someone else from the cloud team, whoever would do it. So we have some stickies up here to talk about some different stuff, and this is a nice segue because I have one specifically about our data retention policy. So in general, the exceptions to that data policy come with two use cases. The first use case is that a customer has some retention requirements, and this comes up a lot for HIPAA customers or customers in specific industries that, hey, we need to retain our data longer than 13 months. So as part of one of the CFS solutions, now data extracts are included in CFS. And so it doesn't come at any extra license cost to the customer or anything like that. So that's the first use case that we recommend for customers who have retention needs. So we'll set up a data extract. They'll get their data. They'll be able to retain it, because if they have retention requirements, typically they're retaining all sorts of data for that 7 years or whatever it is. And so we want to put the eGain data in that same place so that they can manage that all together, because they're gonna know their retention needs better than we are. So that's the first option. Typically that happens when they have retention needs. The second option is for certain customers, potentially they have a need to actually look at interaction data beyond that. So a good example is like a travel agent that might only have 5 or 6 interactions with a customer over 5 years, right? A single year of interaction data isn't really going to fit them. So for those types of customers, we do have an exception to our time-based policy, and we can revert back to the storage-based policy. So essentially, instead of that 13 months, we'll say we're going to give you a base amount of storage, and we won't ever cycle your data out of the system. And then if you ever go above that storage, we'll just charge you a little bit extra to add on some more. It'll be a one-time fee. It won't be recurring, and that storage will be allocated to you until you leave eGain, and then your standard termination stuff applies. So those two things typically accommodate the two most common exceptions that we get. Okay, so.
Okay, Max, so we have a couple of questions and we have 10 minutes left, so let me ask those questions. So Steve Reinhardt asked the question, Max, do we need to have an NDA before sharing those RAS documents?
Nope. As I mentioned, those presentations can be shared with any and every prospect regardless of NDA. The white papers do require an NDA. From a cloud perspective, that's not a huge benefit because the white paper doesn't have a whole lot of extra information. On the product side, I think it is a little more detailed, but the presentations don't require an NDA at all.
Okay. Next question is from DSJ. He's asking a client wants him to access and analyze their cloud KM usage data. What's the process for us to designate somebody and request that access for the eGain employee? This is not about the end customer access. This is about, let's say, if we are engaged in a digital transformation project somewhere like Capita or O2 or one of those clients. So what's the process for them to get access to that data in our cloud?
So in general, for any cloud access, anything, any cloud change, it's going to be to go through our change management process that keeps our compliance pieces and allows us to continue offering the level of security. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Nebula for a second here because this is a good segue. The other place that people go for information is Nebula. So in general, I have some links in Ask eGain, and you can go to Nebula and there's a cloud section. For product collateral, in general, I will say Nebula, you have to be a little bit aware of what you're looking for. I have some links there. There's a cloud product page that I've done. However, just be very careful about when you look at a Nebula page, look at when it was last updated, because chances are if it hasn't been updated in 2 years, that the information might not be accurate. With that caveat, Nebula is the third place to go look for information. If you search for change management, you'll find a bunch of information on change management and how to submit a ticket. So in general, if you need access for something or if you have questions and want to get some information, a CM ticket is going to be your best bet to get access to a customer system, for example.
Okay, so the next question from Craig for the PowerPoint. Is there a way to distinguish between what features come with and what features are premium, pay for play?
So that's a good question. We don't have that in the PowerPoint, but that has been a relatively common question. So actually what I'm sharing right now is my Gold and Platinum Cloud product page. So this is a nice little table that tells you what's included and what's extra for each Gold and Platinum. The other things I have in here are a couple of things that are useful. So there's a PDF of this table so that you can save it and download it and take a look at it. Also, one of the common questions is, hey, I'm only pitching Platinum or I'm only pitching Gold to this certain customer. So I don't want them to see the stuff about Gold or Platinum in the presentation. Now, in general, there's only 1 or 2 slides that change. But what I did was make PDFs of specifically for Gold and specifically for Platinum of that cloud deck. So in general, for Gold, the things that get removed are the compliance options and advanced DR. And then for Platinum, we just remove standard DR, and they get everything else. So I do have PDFs of those broken out here. And then if you scroll down, just as an extra note, I have some information on advanced DR, some better information or more detailed information about Security Plus, what comes with it, and what are the use cases that would require it. But this table is where you'd go for those differences.
Okay. So the next question is around from Mark Herman about why did we decide on 13 months from a data retention perspective? Every customer wants to be more than 13 months, minimum 2 years.
So I guess that's good feedback. from our new customers' perspective, I would probably disagree in saying that it's not every customer, but that is good feedback. So the people who came up with it, it was a combination with cloud and legal and support and product. So there was a lot of people that were involved in that decision. That was made quite a while ago now, probably over a year ago now. If there's obviously there has been some exceptions, so that's why we have that post on Ask eGain to talk about some exceptions, which do meet most of our customers' needs. If it continues to be an exception, we can certainly revisit that and talk about changing that timeline. But as of right now, that timeline seems to meet most customers' needs, and when it doesn't, one of those other two options do seem to suffice.
Okay, perfect. Next question from DSJ. I'm interested in seeing the article view data way back in time. Is it only kept for 13 months? And I'm assuming the answer is yes.
Yeah. So actually, there's a couple interesting caveats to this answer. So our new data policy is 13 months. However, we have a lot of old customers who, for whatever reason, maybe they're smaller, maybe they're on an older version of eGain, and we haven't implemented that data scraping yet, that you might be able to find some information older than 13 months on some customers. So I won't say that it won't ever be there, but in general, for newer customers, that data policy is going to be put in place, so you're only going to be seeing about 13 months. And yeah, so reporting data, I believe, falls under that 13 months. So after 13 months, we're scrubbing that. The one question or the one interaction there that I'm not sure about is that as Vim comes into the cloud, now that Vim is available with 14.1, as we get that available in the cloud and start hooking that up to customer systems, I don't know if they're going to be retaining any extra data in Vim. That's one thing we actually have to follow up on. But to be safe, I would assume that you would only get 13 months because they use our analytics database as a source.
Okay, I have 3 more questions left, Max. First, the next one is from Craig. If a customer has a 6-year document retention policy, then can we support that for the transactional data of retaining it for 6 years?
Yeah, so that's one of the exception cases, right? So if for whatever reason a customer needs to have access for longer than 13 months, that would fall under. So, and the wording here is important, right? If they have a retention policy and they don't need an eGain, then we point them towards that first data extract option, because then they'd be able to manage their retention however they need to retain it, right? If for whatever reason they needed it in the eGain system for more than 13 months, then we point them to that second option, which says instead of the time-based retention, we're going to do the old storage-based retention. And then the only thing they have to be concerned about is if that data growth goes beyond that 300 gig base, there will be incremental storage charges, one-time charges, whenever it needs to be bumped up.
Understood. Next question from Tom Gillen along the same lines. And as you can see, this particular topic kind of is very, very sensitive. In the past, Max, we may not have had all these questions because the people who were in the field in front of customers actually answered that question based on that, yes, you can retain your data, as long as you want. Now, as you can see from so many questions from, all the different places, that this is a bit sensitive issue. Next question is reporting. If the data is kept only for 13 months, then what options do we have for historical reporting? So customer, we want to go back and do analysis of trends, peaks, valleys over, let's say, 2 years. Then from a reporting perspective, what are the options?
Sure. So in general, customers who want to do that in-depth analysis are probably leveraging a workforce management tool, and in general are integrating with that workforce management tool. So that was actually a pretty common integration that we did back when I was in PS, is either through a data extract where they were pulling that information in, or for some examples, actually directly through an API where they were pulling that data into a workforce management tool to do that analysis. So having said that, yes, if they don't have a workforce management tool, then and they were relying on the product reports from cloud, then they would only get 13 months. So then they would need to, that is a consideration that we would need to talk about if they want that beyond 13 months long-term data. And then obviously the option would be to drive them towards some type of data extract. If they don't have the workforce management tool and they want to do it with eGain, then potentially that second exception where they want to keep the data in eGain longer.
Okay. The last question about is about custom cloud. So Danny has a question: is there a specific information available about custom cloud? If so, where I can find it?
The information about custom cloud is still under development and is not officially released yet. So at this time, there is no official information available about custom cloud, except to one specific customer that we have been potentially talking about doing, or that we are doing it for. But there's no generally available information about custom cloud. It's not released yet.
Okay, perfect. You know, we are almost at 4:30. So, you know, thank you all for your time to join today's session, and thank you, Arvind and Max, for being the guest speaker and walking the team through this information. Anybody has any questions that we didn't get a chance to ask during these sessions, please do send it over to Ashley and myself, and we'll get you the answer. Okay, with that, thank you, Max, thank you, Arvind, thank you, Ashley, for all the logistical help, and thank you all for attending.
Thanks, everyone.